Property 6. The interpretation of 95% confidence interval. We just mentioned you cannot say a confidence interval is a probability interval because it has no randomness. Okay? So what is the correct interpretation of a 95% confidence interval? Let me use this example to explain the concept. If we repeat the experiment 1,000 times. Now what is the experiment? The experiment is a coin flip what? 100 times. And I repeat this one 1,000 times. So how many times I flip the coin altogether? 100,000 times. Is that okay? So every 100 flip, I keep a record, okay, of how many heads I get. For example, in the first 100 flip, the first experiment, I saw 40 heads. 40 out of 100 is what? 40%. So I plug in the formula. N equal to 100. X bar equal to 0.4. A 95% confidence interval will be the interval from 0.304 to 0.496. Okay? Now, second 100 flip, that's my second experiment. I see 50 heads. So 50 over 100 is 50%. I plug in the formula. I get a 95% confidence interval. Is from 0.402 to 0.598. Okay? Now I keep doing this until the very last one experiment, the last 100 flip. I saw 60 heads. 60 over 100. So a 95% confidence interval for pi is 0.504 to 0.696. Is that okay? Now, I have what? 1,000 95% confidence interval. Now let's look at the picture below, okay? From 0 to 1, pi is what? Somewhere between 0 to 1. Suppose, easy for my demonstration, suppose pi is here. Is that okay? The first interval, the first one, experiment, I see 40 heads. So n is 100, X bar is 40%. I plug in the formula. The interval, the 95% confidence interval, is 0.304 to 0.496. According to this picture, the interval actually covers the location of pi. So probability that 0.304 to 0.496 cover pi with what? 100%. Is that okay? And second one, I see 50 heads. So n is 100, X bar is what? 50%. I plug in the formula. I get a 95% confidence interval from 0.402 to 0.598. Again, this one cover pi, so probability this interval cover pi is what? Is 1. Now I keep doing this until the very last one, okay? As you can see, some cover pi with probability 1, some don't, okay? Like this one. The last one, I flip the coin 100 times, I see 60 heads, okay? And X bar is 60%, N is 100. I plug in the formula. I get a 95% confidence interval from 0.504 to 0.696. This interval doesn't cover pi. So probability from 0.504 to 0.696 cover pi with probability equal to 0. Are you with me? But doesn't matter cover pi or doesn't cover pi, okay? They all call this 1,000 what? Intervals. They all call what? 95% confidence interval for pi. That is to say, for single what? For single experiment, the outcome. For example, this one. You don't say this 0.304 cover 0.496 with what? Probability 95%. For each single experiment, either cover pi with 1 or doesn't cover pi with what? Or doesn't cover pi with probability 0. Nothing in between. So you should explain 95% confidence interval as follows. You should say if you repeat the experiment many, many times, in here is what? You repeat 1,000 times. Then you expect 95% of such interval will actually catch pi. In our case, you expect to see what? 950 of such what? 95% confidence interval will catch pi. That is also means you expect to see 50 of them will not catch pi. Is that okay?